Hello and welcome to the East Lampeter Township Public Meeting. All participants are now informed that this meeting is being recorded. This meeting is also being offered virtually utilizing Zoom, which is a cloud-based platform for remote video and audio conferencing. The Zoom application is free to the public. The general public is therefore able to join the meeting by connection through the internet or by calling in by phone. The public is also able to observe the meeting on the Township's YouTube channel. Please continue to check the Township website calendar for any updates related to these public meetings. Agendas for these public meetings will also be available on the Township's website. Please be reminded that this meeting is being video and audio recorded and will be posted to the Township's YouTube channel for viewing. The meeting will now proceed with the chairman calling the meeting to order and identifying all other members present in the meeting room and those joining the meeting via Zoom. The chairman will then confirm those members joining by Zoom can be heard.
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Monday, October 4th, 2021 meeting of the East Lampeter Township Board of Supervisors. In the room tonight is Supervisor Buckwalter, Supervisor Demi, Supervisor Meyer, and Supervisor Everly are unable to be with us tonight. I'm the vice chair, so I'll be serving as the chair for this evening's meeting. There are agendas at the back of the room. If you haven't picked one up, please do so. If you haven't signed in, we ask that you please do that as well, too. We need that for the public record. As you can tell, we are broadcasting live on our YouTube channel through Zoom. If there are any individuals who are on Zoom who have questions or comments and things, I'll ask staff to check email or chat, and we'll take those questions and or comments at that time. Okay. If you would please rise and join me in pledging to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item number 3 on the agenda. About 2 years ago, we changed public comment to the beginning of our meetings as opposed to the end. This will be public comment for non-agenda items only. Non-agenda items only. So if there's anyone who would like to approach the board, make any comments to us about non-agenda items, please feel free to do so. If you would step up to the mic here, you probably won't hear yourself talking into that mic, but please speak close to it. It is recording and broadcasting through Zoom. So anyone have any comments? Please state your name and your address and come up to the mic if you would, please.
My name is Jeff Miller, and I own the property on 110 Highview Drive, and I'm still questioning about the no parking on Highview Drive and Crestmark Avenue.
Okay. Jeff, if I'm correct, 110, correct? 110 Highview. Okay, correct. And if I'm correct, Jeff, last time you were here, you were expressing some concern about being able to park in front of 110.
Yes.
Correct. Did staff have a chance to come out and or at least discuss that with Mr. Miller?
I did.
Okay. 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 That's great.
If you want to do it now, that's what you have to do.
Can we hold off, Jeff? We'll get to it as soon as we get to that. We got a pretty quick meeting tonight anyway, so we want to get to that. There may be some other folks here, I think, too, as well. So
Okay.
thank you, Jeff. Appreciate that. Okay. Thank you, Ralph. Anyone else? Public comment for non-agenda items?
I hope this is procedure. I have a non-agenda item.
And your
Name is
go ahead.
Nathan Kimmel, 2259 Creek Hill Road. Water runoff. It's terrible. The basement's now getting to the point where it's been flooded so many times. The yard's been washed out completely. There were some technicians from, I don't know if it was PP&L or the Comcast people, but they put new telephone poles in out there. And they revealed a drainage, drain just short of my driveway that was there, the way they explained, must have been there a long time ago. I don't know how we follow up on this, but I would certainly appreciate somebody taking a good look. About 20 years ago, we had the same problem. I mean, it's just a continual, but dramatically worse. And at that time, 20 years ago, they installed a little bit of a curb buffer. I think the engineer said, let's try that. Well, that failed. So now I have a brick sidewalk. My brick sidewalk was washed up. I had a contractor come in, large amount of money to have it replaced where it washed out. I don't want to necessarily have to go through this again. And I'd also like to put a driveway down, a new driveway. The person I contacted about installing the driveway, he said, I need to contact the township prior to discussing this because they don't see how they could solve my problem. So that's about the extent of it, but something we need to look at, I'm sure.
And your address again, Mr. Kimmel?
2259 Creek Hill Road,
Okay.
between Horning and Hartman Station.
Department Station, yeah. Okay. Ralph, recommendation. Mhm.
Where the water comes from that creates this issue?
The road, the crown on the road, and I'd say about 500 yards up the road, it's a downgrade to my house. And all the water, I guess, on this side of the crown, which can be very extensive. I mean, I have pictures I can show later. It's more convenient maybe, but it looks like a river going down through. And now my neighbors down on Portland or Porter Way, they're getting residual off of my place, washing down through their magnificent landscape. So I didn't address them or didn't contact them. They put a wall up down there to help eliminate the problem, but I can see that that's not going to do the trick as well. No, I would say not. I mean, maybe the road, when they redid the road, perhaps they enhanced the crown. That I wouldn't know. I don't think that would make that much difference, really. I mean, there's just that much water coming down there now. You almost have to see it. My pictures will explain that to you later. 3-4 times. I have pictures.
Great. If you go to jot that off this paper, phone number, and or email address for it, and that to verify before you go,
Sure.
so that we have contact. I don't want to ask you to announce that. So you write that down.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Mr. Kimmel. Oh, you bet. Thank you, Ralph. Appreciate that. Thank you. Tara, we'll get in touch with Mr. Kimmel, follow up with him and see if we can't get a hold of his pictures and see what may or may not be going on there. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else for non-agenda items? Okay. Hearing none, we're going to move on to our consent agenda. Okay. Item number 4. One, we have the approval of this evening's meeting agenda. 4B, we have approval of the minutes of our last board meeting, which was Monday, September the 20th. And we have approval to pay invoices from all funds. And we have $699,262.92 in invoices to pay this evening. There are several items of note on there. We have a $328,726.97 bill to the city of Lancaster for the 2020 and second quarter 2021 flow charges. We have $114,800.52 to our fire companies for the 2021 fire relief grant distribution. And that would be $28,700.13 for each of our 4 fire companies. And we have finally $86,110 to watch guard video for body cams for our police department. How many body cams does that represent, Ralph? Represents 40. Okay. So a sizable investment putting it into body cams for our police officers to begin. We have had dash cams for quite some time. This is now obviously progression to the body cams. So thank you. Any public comment on the consent agenda? Okay, board members, what's your interest?
I move we approve the consent agenda with the one modification regarding our agenda. And that is item number 5 will not, we can strike that from the agenda.
Great, thank you very much. Our chief was not ready tonight, so he will be, as he gets everything lined up, to make a recognition of a situation. So thank you, Dave, appreciate that. So modifications to the agenda for tonight's meeting to number 5. Okay, motion on the table, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Dave and seconded by Ethan. Questions or concerns about the motion? Hearing none, those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, item number 6, we have a presentation from the Lancaster Public Library. You'll have to speak directly into that mic, okay? Thank you, guys.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jamie Hall, and I'm the Director of Donor Relations at Lancaster Public Library. Thanks for having us.
My name is Eva Dombrowski. I am a volunteer board member for the Lancaster Public Library. Thanks. It's customary for us to start most of our gatherings by doing a mission recitation. We'll spare you that this evening, but we wanted to make sure that you all could see and are reminded of our mission and vision, because specifically we want to focus on how Lancaster Public Library strengthens our community, connects people, provides access to resources, and also builds opportunities in our community.
I'm here as the numbers person, as the Director of Donor Relations. So I'm going to go through some statistics that people may find surprising. One of the biggest misconceptions we have about the library is use of library. And so this shows that there is 23% of your residents in East Lampeter that have an active library card. That's over 4,000 library cards. Lancaster Public Library as a whole sees about 350,000 annual visitors on a typical year, COVID accepted. The residents in East Lampeter, they borrowed over 95,000 materials in 2019. That is, according to the American Library Association, worth about $1.5 million of material. That's about $17 per material, which is actually probably on the low end of how much we actually end up spending on our new materials for the library. And our collection is used all over the county. We do have our 2 branches of Lancaster Public Library, one on North Duke Street downtown, and then we also have our Mountville location. That's not to say that our materials aren't used all over the county. We have the largest collection of materials, so there may be somebody from East Lampeter that may use a different library, but it is most likely that they will still end up with the material from Lancaster Public Library in their hand at some point over the year. We often are using interlibrary loans to support some of the smaller libraries around the county. We also have the largest e-resource material collection out of the libraries in the county. We spent about 21% of our budget last year on 21% of our collection budget last year on e-resources. So that is free for all library patrons. So even if they're not using our Duke Street or Mountville branch, they're still able to connect with us. That was crucial during 2020 and made sure that we were still able to connect with all of our patrons when we were unable to have our doors open. And that is also something that sets Lancaster Public Library apart is our librarians that we have. We have the most MLS, which is a Master's of Library Science, holding librarians. And we handle over 2,000 reference questions directly to them each year. And it's actually, we retrieve about 7 million pieces of information each year through our librarians.
So back to how we also provide a space to connect people, not just through e-resources, but through the Mountville and downtown branches, people of all ages do connect and share resources. Though most people might associate libraries with kind of an archaic past or even young children and story time, you'll see on this graph that the majority and the largest percentage of patrons is actually millennials with 34%. And then also the largest bulk of card holders are from Gen X and younger. So you'll see that it's not just a thing of the past. And if you go to the next slide, you know, what exactly is this mix of young and aging citizenry doing while they're engaging at Lancaster Public? It's getting access to authoritative information and entertainment in a variety of forms and mediums. Out of the 13 other libraries in Lancaster County, Lancaster Public Library has not only the largest service area, but also the largest collection, as Jamie just shared. Other libraries can access all of those pieces of our collection through interlibrary loan. And so just because you might not get downtown doesn't mean you're not holding something that the Lancaster Public Library has provided. So before we highlight some of the other resources in our collection, I wanted to quiz you quickly. Which of the following items do you think are part of the Lancaster Public Library collection? American Girl dolls, lawn games, musical instruments, or baking pans? Any guess?
All of the above. That's what I was just
You got it. Next slide. Hit it to the next slide. You can see no matter what your area of interest or which one you chose, you were correct. You can see that from this list, all of those items are currently available to check out for no cost to all of our patrons. Lancaster Public Library is full service for all ages and areas of interest. And not only are these fun recreational items, patrons can access hotspots so that you can connect to the wealth of resources also on the internet. And in-person time with a reference librarian like Jamie shared at the Duke Street Business Center, or even museum passes if you're getting a little bored and want to further expand your horizons in other institutions. You can see from this list that Lancaster Public Library is so much more than just books.
And this is to show that our librarians offer quite a bit on quite a tight budget. So the national average per capita is $37.60 for local funding. Local funding that Lancaster Public Library receives is about $1.49 per capita. So you can see there's a huge difference on a national scale compared to Lancaster Public Library. As we go down the graph, you see with state funding, we're still lower, and federal is about the same. And then we get to other sources. Other sources is what we categorize as fundraising. So our fundraising is what has to make up for the difference in that funding that we receive. And then just to compare that by numbers, that fundraising number is number 4 out of 450 public libraries in Pennsylvania. We are the 8th largest service area in Pennsylvania. And what is most shocking is even though we have the 8th largest service area, we're 429th in staff per capita due to funding and 439th in local funding per capita. It is on us to generate the majority of our annual budget. So our annual operating budget is 58% library deficit, meaning fundraised, also that includes library fines, and a small portion of our property tax.
So we know that you are juggling a lot of considerations as we approach budget season. And there are a tyranny of policy, of priorities and other things that are going on. We've been so grateful for your generous contributions in the past and your support throughout the years. But after outlining how much value the Lancaster Public Library already brings to our community, we're asking for your renewed commitment and betterment of your constituency by pledging $1.50 per capita to your annual contribution. This will help us get closer to the $5 per capita suggestion from the state, and hopefully a bite-sized chunk that's reasonable and doable from your perspective. So we know that you know how valuable a thriving library is to a strong and connected, resourceful community. And we're honored that East Lampeter is a place of opportunity and possibility for many. We can't wait to continue serving in this way. We're gonna stop right there for right now.
Have any questions for us regarding the annual budget or anything that we can describe for our Lancaster Public Library?
I've got a couple quick questions. The 95,000 materials that were borrowed in 2019, how many of those were borrowed from LPL or a LPL branch?
So that is all, those 95,000 materials were all, those 95,000 materials were all borrowed from Lancaster Public Library and by East Lampeter residents.
So
We're
that's-
able to figure that out by,
Yeah, so that's not the whole system.
yeah, no, that is just from Lancaster Public Library.
And then is there any discussions? I know the last time you guys were here, there weren't any concrete plans, but there was discussions for replacing library services that used to be served by the Leola branch.
Yeah, so we have absorbed the Leola branch into the two branches that we have now. Is there a specific service that you're thinking of, or is it just more?
The geographic, and have you seen a difference in, because I haven't looked at the distribution numbers by branch this year. Normally I do that when we do our budget, because as you know, we give contributions to several libraries based off of usage. Have you seen that all the usage that was at Leola moving to Lancaster City, or has that moved or appeared to move to other library branches or other library systems?
Sure, absolutely. How we monitor that is through, you can change your home library on your library card. So of that, I know last year, at the end of last year, there were only 12 that had moved to other libraries as their home library. Since then, I have not heard any updates, which makes me believe that it is still a very small number.
Yes, but you hadn't seen the percentage of your direct circulation relative to the, so you know the whole number of how many materials East Lampeter Township cardholders borrowed.
Mhm.
And you used to be, I forget which percentage, it was like 60-some% of that. Has that percentage changed with
No,
Leola closing?
The numbers that we used today were all from 2019. It is a little more difficult for us to tell those percentages right now because of our circulation numbers through 2020. We did have our branches closed for a few months, and then we had modified services. We did continue to keep our doors open for as long as the mandate was allowing. But we did do things like book bundles, and we had definitely less foot traffic. That is
Yeah.
also seen though in every library across the system.
Yeah, I was just looking more at 2021 numbers. So
Yeah, 2021, we've definitely seen an increase, but still the beginning of the year, we had up until March, mostly book bundles, and we definitely saw less foot traffic. We are starting to see more regular numbers, and people are definitely getting back to the library. We also saw a huge turnout for our Mountville book sale and our regular big book sale, which makes us think that people are starting to feel much more comfortable getting back into the community. But that being said, it's very hard for us to see the percentages, although we just seen it grow and grow each month as we get closer out of 2020.
And
Is
then your
the-
local
go ahead.
fundraising is my last question. How much money are you raising from East Lampeter Township out from private sources?
That I would have to try and find you a number. I would have to do some investigating. That's a little bit more difficult to find a true number. But I can get you an estimate.
Because I think our budget, we're close to $1.50 ahead in our current allotment for total libraries, but not directly for LPL. I'd have to check. I'm
Check
not
to see.
sure.
Yeah.
We might be over. I know we're in
The new
that
census
range.
figure, would change that a little bit, but, yeah, I
It's
think
a
we're
number to
not too
look at.
far from that.
Yeah, we're about to have our budget meeting, so this is good information to have as we
Yeah.
roll into that. 'Cause we've
Lastly,
increased funding for library services since I came on the board, I think almost every year. So you're doing great work.
No, so appreciate that. And one thing that I just would like to add is that I understand that you split up your funds through a number of libraries. And the only thing that I would add is that we do not determine our service area, and that the system has determined everyone's service areas. So we look to our service area municipalities to support us, just as they look to their service area municipalities to support them. So we really appreciate all of it.
So the $5 per capita is a recommended coming from what?
The state
The
It's
state.
not a mandate or
Sure.
For total funding.
What's that? The five is local funding per capita. Correct, yeah. Yeah, so from an average $1.50 to 5 is what the state meaning, our state government is saying, hey, look, here's how much we'd like to see coming from, they're not basing it on anything in particular, because at a national level, you're saying it's $37.62.
more common, not in the state of Pennsylvania, but more common across the country is having a dedicated library tax. And we don't have, that's something that we give the national.
Sure. Okay. Anything else?
Other questions?
Ralph?
Appreciate the
No,
presentation.
nothing. Anything else?
I just wanted to share, there's two last slides. That we are moving to a new location from Duke Street to Queen Street in 2023. We are moving to Ewell Plaza, and the move I didn't want to focus on today because that move is going to be entirely through fundraising and through grants that are specific to capital campaigns, and it is not. That doesn't affect our operations budget. So our timeline has shifted a little bit. I'm not sure I was able to update you on this last year, but we are looking to move in the first quarter of 2023. We're looking to receive we'll be in the first 2 floors of the new parking garage that is located on Queen Street next to 101 North Queen. And we will be receiving the first 2 floors of that in March of 2022 and begin a 10-month construction process. This is the timeline. And then we hope to have a fun ribbon cutting with everyone come March, April of 2023. Fingers crossed. but
What's
everything's-
the square footage? I've been following it, but I don't know that I've seen square footage comparison.
Square footage is very close in just numbers, but the usability is
Far different.
so different. It's also including our square footage right now at Lancaster Public Library at Duke Street includes our basement, which our basement is housing materials, but it is not open to the public. So it will be a much bigger library. for our patrons.
Good. Looking forward to it. Okay, questions? Concerns? None. Okay, thank you very much. Good to see you guys. You'll be in our conversations on the 27th of October as we prepare our budget for next year. Okay, thanks, guys. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, moving on. Item number 7, old business. We had some conversation. We've had resident participation. We acted upon this with an ordinance, and we're bringing it back up for continued public conversation, neighbor conversation. 7A, the on-street parking for Highview Drive and Crestmont Avenue. So Ralph, I think you may have been out for the first conversation on this, but I don't remember, Dave, some of us were here at different times
I-
throughout this conversation.
I was here at the last meeting when it was,
Second.
we acted on the ordinance.
Okay. So, we had residents coming before us and raising concerns about the interaction of some business parking in their neighborhood with a business that's in the neighborhood and school buses, children, just ingress and egress from the neighborhood that is accessed from Highview Drive and Crestmont Avenue. We got staff engaged. We went out on site and then we took a look at state standards and established an ordinance to try to manage the parking that is in this neighborhood and had to sign that parking restrictions with an ordinance. So we had to actually adopt an ordinance to guide us in ensuring that we were following some standards in putting up signage and limiting parking there. We did that 2 months ago, 8 weeks ago.
The ordinance was adopted at your July meeting,
Then we,
is
thank you.
my recollection.
Then we, last meeting, September the 20th, correct?
Yes.
We had individuals come and bring up some additional concerns and raise those concerns at the public meeting. And so we decided we probably need to have another conversation with the community. We sent out a mailer to the neighborhood, correct? Sent out a mailer.
We did.
Great, awesome. So we sent it. We thought we wanted to at least reach out to the community a little deeper as opposed to just our website and social media and say, hey, we want to have that conversation again. So I don't see the individual who was here at the last meeting who was raising quite a lot of concerns. Gentlemen, conversation,
Yeah.
discussion. I can bring up the public as well too. So, yeah.
I would just say, as you alluded to earlier, following your last meeting, and the discussion was held then, I did go out to both Highview and Crestmont, reviewed conditions out there, looked at the ordinance as it was adopted. And in particular, Mr. Miller had requested during the board meeting that we look in particular at the change that was made to restrict parking directly in front of his property, which I did. And following my review of the ordinance, the state standards, the conditions there on Highview in front of Mr. Miller's property, it's my feeling that allowing parking in front of that property would not create any additional safety issues. And so if the board, in my view, if the board were to consider making a change to the restrictions that were out there, allowing parking in front of 110 Highview could be permitted.
Okay. All right.
That would result in re-advertising and adopting another ordinance to modify the
Yes. Now,
restrictions.
as the ordinance was adopted, it indicates a certain number of feet from Old Philadelphia Pike restricted back. So since the restriction as it's adopted is more than, if it would be reduced back to allow in front of 110, we could move the sign before the ordinance is amended and still comply with the ordinance.
Okay. But we
So-
still would have to amend the advertise that we were changing this ordinance and then go through the process of voting on it and adopt.
Correct,
Okay.
if that's the board's wish that you would change. that.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you.
And I think if I understand that staff's review of the site indicated the other restrictions should remain in place.
Is that correct, Ralph?
That is my view, yes.
So as it currently exists, the ordinance says, I forget which one, but one of the two is 175 and the other is
220, I believe.
220. Okay, so from the center line on Old Philly or from the white line on Old Philly?
Yeah, it would have been measured from the point of intersection, not the center line.
Correct. Okay, good. Okay, I think that sort of clears up what we currently have in front of us, Ethan.
Yeah, I'll just make a comment and I'd love to get feedback from the public. So based on because I was at all of the meetings. So we've restricted parking back and it's further back in the business, but the main issues, as I understand them, that's where I'd love to get feedback from folks, make sure the rest of the neighborhood agrees, is given the amount of traffic coming in and out of that business on a regular basis, which the business owner also said there's a lot of traffic going in and out, that any parking from that business to the street makes it difficult and potentially unsafe for people turning in and out. There may be enough room, but it just because there's no accident doesn't mean there's no close calls. So based off of that, I think we made the right call of restricting parking. I think the distance we pushed it back was a little too far. So I'm in favor of bringing that back now. The business owner brought up a point, which I'd love to get feedback, which he indicated that everyone parks unless their kids get out for the school bus stop on Old Philadelphia Pike. And is that, which would also create a similar traffic problem as his vehicles. So I don't know if that's a common occurrence, and if people parking there to unload and pick up kids is also creating a similar problem. But then also if we don't restrict the parking as far back, we say, all right, just 100 feet to walk isn't too difficult, or the business owner seemed to indicate it was too much to walk, but I don't know if the residents think it's too far to walk for their kids to get on the school bus. So I'd love to, do people generally think that any parking is dangerous at those intersections, or is some parking okay, or at different times of the day?
Good. If I can, one more before we have the public speak. There are two businesses that came up in question. One is an in-home business, I believe on Old Philadelphia Pike. I think that's the one you were just referring to. Is that correct?
No.
No. So there's an in-home business that is working its way through the process. I believe a childcare business. That one is facing Old Philadelphia Pike, but there's driveway onto Crestmont. And then there, the gentleman here maybe, and then there's the larger business that first began, I guess, to generate some of the concern here was the health and wellness chiropractic business as well too. So both of those, and we can hear from everybody about those. So anyway, I'll open it up to discussion, conversation. The board is more than willing to hear suggestions and have dialogue with you all. Obviously, we have an ordinance that we adopted, a law, if you would, on a local level. And so we need to be listening to the public to see where that stands, and then we have to weigh how to best proceed. So if you want to come up and speak, don't forget, speak right into the mic and then state your name and then address, please. Thank you. You're the most eager. We're going to give you the microphone first. Might need to just put that down to your mouth. Thank you.
Okay, is that better?
That's great. Thank you.
I'm Patty Bathurst, 121 Highview Drive. We're kind of here in support of Mr. Miller, and I didn't know his name until tonight, but the day those signs went up, we were all so surprised to see that there was parking limited in front of a person's house. And we all felt really bad, but we didn't want to make waves because we had really gotten what we wanted. The issues have been removed. It's much safer now. Some of the things I'm reading on here are not making too much sense.
Are those the
to
minutes?
me.
Are those the minutes? Okay, thanks.
Yes, from the last meeting. So I won't address any of that, but I just really wanted to say thank you for getting this through for us, because we think we've got a safer neighborhood. Interestingly enough, some of the folks from the chiropractor's office are now parking down in front of our houses and walking up to their office, which we kind of don't understand why that would be occurring, and looks like it might have subsided for now. I hope so. And I'm going to stay in the parking lot. So, but again, I don't.
Okay, great. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks for your
Appreciate
comments. Appreciate that. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Sure, absolutely. Come back up, Mr. Miller. You probably repeat some things, but that's fine. Go ahead. I have to adjust that mic. Sorry, Mr. Miller.
So now you want me to repeat my name again, address 110 Highview Drive. Right? So now, I guess my question is, are you going to bring that up on the other side of my driveway so We have people come over, for dinner, Thanksgiving. And are we going to allow the parking outside the street?
I can't say yes or no just yet. We're going to take public comment here. And then if the board members decide they want to put out a motion, then I can certainly consider the motion.
I'm not here to argue these young ladies about the driving up through there. But gotta really understand, it's not a public street as a whole bunch of people driving out through it.
Well, Mr. Miller,
It's just us.
yeah, you understand that staff is recommending what you're suggesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just like to park in front of my house, my in-laws.
Understand.
They-
It's not a throughway. It's not a through street.
Right.
It is a public street, but not a through street,
That's it.
which is why
It's not a lot of
we're
traffic.
involved because it's a public street.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Appreciate
You bet.
that. Thanks for coming out again. We do appreciate that. Sure.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Mumo, and I live at 129 Crestlawn. And again, like she said, thank you for putting these signs, but it's much safer. I have on multiple occasions had people coming out of the chiropractic, I guess, patients, feeling they had the right of way, where the people on the actual street had to stop. There was no room for them, us, and the people parking. So I do appreciate that, and thank you. I do have one question as you're moving the sign. How is that going to prevent the chiropractic people parking in front of his house? I feel like they're just going to park in their house. So. Nope. They may now.
Speaking of the mic,
But thank you.
you said you have a question. To answer your question, I think you know the answer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Public street.
Thank you. Anyone else? Pull it the whole way. Perfect. There you go. And speak right into that if you would, please.
I've been speaking for Mr. Matos.
Yep.
So he brought up is the income business coming up?
Yes. And Mr. Matos, his address, please.
1909, Philadelphia, Oakland.
Great. Thank you.
So he actually had concerns about the no parking issues on the side of
Crestmont.
Christmas. Sorry. So, and it's because of the daycare. They do have enough driveway, but the issues that he was thinking was about sometimes weather, maybe kids are coming, dropping in and out. And that was his concern, but I think you had addressed it, if you might even in the back and that.
In the hearing that he participated in with the zoning hearing board, and they are the group that listens to a petition to try to put that type of a use into his home. During that discussion, there was I guess, a discussion back and forth, and perhaps maybe part of the agreement to allow the business to go through. There was discussion of using the driveway for allowing for 2 cars to come in and drop off and leave, correct?
It's a part of the decision that the zoning hearing board made.
Yeah. So utilizing the driveway is going to be important for that use to be in that neighborhood, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Understand that.
Okay. All right,
Thank
good.
you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Matos. What else?
I'm Chad Pickle. I live at 130 Crestmont Avenue.
Your last name, Chad?
Chad Pickle.
Chad Pickle.
And I live at 130 Crestmont.
Thank you.
Through the outfit I work for and myself, I come up and down that road. Trailers, big trucks, bucket trucks, long stake bodies. And it may be tight, but I've never had an issue getting through with people being parked on the side.
So you pull those vehicles home at night and you park them in front of your house,
In front of
or?
my house, and then I also have a 35-foot camper that I made those turns Crestmont or I do with no just was here to make sure that the board doesn't decide to make all of Crestmont.
Oh, yeah.
Because that would be disastrous.
Sure. Understand. No. I can assure you that that's not part of our consideration. So. Unless the neighborhood asks us to consider that, then we will consider it.
Good evening, Brian Rogers, representing Stanley America.
I have to hold that, Byron. Sorry. You're probably gonna have to hold that. You're pretty tall. Yeah, thanks, man.
We totally respect the neighborhood. We try to be as good of a neighbor as we can. We've had several neighbors over the years use our parking lot for weekend events, guys across the street and so forth. We've done a lot. I spoke with Tara about this 7 years ago. There was nothing else that could be done. We've contacted Cedar Acres, the townhouses across the street, and the motor lodge or whatever, trying to rent space, and I've been able to do that. And so our concern is basically just the preferential aspects of the distribution of that. So, you know, if it's, we have Eric and Charlie, last name, you know, with the state, the width of the road, I mean, obviously you look down that road, and there's a variety of depth changes to it. It's not really as consistent as what it could be, but it just is very discriminatory where that's laid out. We look at railroad crossing for egress of different streets. It's 20 to a maximum of 50 foot. It's a state recognized. We're beyond. The tree there is 47, 48 feet, and we're beyond that at one of the thicker parts or wider parts, I should say, of the road. I guess you guys were led to believe there is a bus stop on 340 buses coming up and down that street. Coincidentally, the people that presumably people that are upset at us parking there are also the ones that stop there to park and wait for the kids to get on off the bus. And furthermore, like in the morning before work, we have no problem if they want to sit on a lot, to do that. Our main concern is just the overflow. So there was a note there something about somebody's car being hit. It's not really a concern. The concern is it's safer for us to do that once or twice throughout the day than it is to have patients who are coming and going, doing that all the time. Especially with Medicare patients or someone that's injured, they're walking further distance. So we're trying to put those concerns first as well. So just the asymmetry of it, like seems very discriminatory, very targeted towards the business. I know there was complaints when the office was being built. There was construction parking on the street. The neighbors complained about that. So I understand that's their nets. So on one hand, they don't want street parking, but the width of the street isn't any better as you go down. So to just target that area, we're saying egress, but they're going to be a reasonable distance that still allows us to park, out there a little bit further down. I think would be reasonable resolution. We'll come to some sort of agreeable terms on that. Let's see here. My dad gave me so. Yeah, Jeff Keane, I don't know if he reached out to you guys, Fire Chief Lafayette, he expressed, no issue. Furthermore, there was restrictions then on Crestmont, which no one's ever parked over there, not ever. From our office, patient staff, otherwise, so I'm not sure why that was, restricted. That business, Mr. Keane's place, and then Mrs. Buck's place right behind us. Yeah, so just trying to get clarification on, on the reasons, it seems directly targeted at us. As far as safety goes, studies actually show people drive slower as far as parking. So the narrower the street is, the slower people are going to go on that street. And in our time, thankfully, we've not had any accidents there. I have to say that accidents happen. But just because patients or somebody's pulling out of a business in an aggressive manner, you don't necessarily punish the business. Once again, it's out of our control. Someone speaks to my parking lot, like, it's my jurisdiction. So, try to be a good neighbor, but just want the same rights, fair treatment that everyone's.
Good. Okay. Thank Thank you. Appreciate that. Yes, thanks for your comments.
My name is Wanda Reed. I live at 125 Highview Drive. It is a safety hazard when you turn off the old Philadelphia type. It was before. And you had those vehicles parked there. Plus, we had all that shrubbery there. It was a blind spot. But the shrubbery's been taken care of, which we appreciate. The signs being put up, we really appreciate. The school children, some walk up with their parents, and some do drive up. That is correct. They're not there more than 5 or 10 minutes at a clip. Now, they should have a big enough parking lot to hold all their vehicles, including their employee vehicles, without having to come down now and park in front of our homes, so that we can't park in front of our homes or have company if we so choose to do so. I understand it's a business. I understand that. And I understand, according to the last notes, his father made a comment that they have nice vehicles. They don't want them hit along the street, but we don't want ours hit either. And I do appreciate the signs, and I do hope we can come to a compromise, because right now we're not real happy with that business at the end of the street. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's Brenda Weinbarger, I'm in family chiropractic in Lancaster, 1717. And I just have a few comments regarding. First of all, family chiropractic is very family oriented, and we really appreciate our neighbors and we really respect them and meet their neighbors. It's never our intent to create any upset in the neighborhood. Unfortunately, we also have a whole lot of patients, and many of those patients are older. And you can plan for an office visit to take a certain amount of time, but as an older person has to get and move around, it takes them double, triple the amount of time. So we have made the decision that we needed to have more space to have available for them at peak times of our day. And that meant that we wanted to accommodate them by taking some of our employees and moving them off of the lot so that they could be the closest to the doors and have better access because of our concern for them. And also, an older person had more chance of falling and getting hurt just by walking, in addition to just driving. So we are concerned about the school neighborhood kids having to be out and get the buses. And we are happy to let any parent or anyone in the neighborhood to use the parking lot while they do load or reload their children. We have also been a good neighbor by allowing many of the neighbors to use our parking lot when we have family events that go on at different times of the year, weekends, holidays. We've never denied anyone. We've had people call us and ask, and we give them permission. We've also, anyone that has parked there, we've never told them that it's enough. So we've tried to be good neighbors in that respect. We were very concerned about our neighbor right directly behind our property and with the limits that we were placing, because if those limits stayed in place, we're going to devalue their properties. No one wants to buy a house and you can't park in front of it. That really takes away a privilege that many of us want to have. So we need those ordinances changed for that reason, for respecting the neighbors as well. We know that we have traffic going in and out of the business, and it's important that we do accommodate all of our patients because they are in need of the care that we're providing. And we want to make sure that we are available to them for that. We do know buses do not go up and down our streets, and they're there strictly, usually early morning, and then mid-afternoon. I would say at the range between 3 and 4. I've watched them, and so those are the times when the buses are there. However, the majority of the portion of the day, there's no buses going up and down there. There's very little traffic, just neighborhood individuals that are going up and down, other than people coming in and out of our property, which is at the very end of the block. So if you change that ordinance and reduce the length of the ordinance to give us a little bit more space that we can park a few of our employees off of our property, that would greatly accommodate us.
and make it more viable for more patients. And we would continue to be a good neighbor by allowing the neighbors to use the parking lot for their needs as well. So thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else? Sure.
If they are such a great business and are so busy, and I don't know the zoning, I don't know what's allowed, but they have a lot of decorative trees and stones in the parking lot, which would probably account for the 5 vehicles that park along the road. They're already parking in there now. Why can't they adjust their parking? But, I don't understand. And you're right, the buses don't come down our road, however, they stop at the end at rush hour, around 3:30, 4 o'clock. And it is a hazard. Everybody's coming in, kids are coming in, patients are leaving. It's a busy intersection, one highway. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Margaret Stoner. I live at 124 Highview Drive. I don't really have anything new to add. I just think, basically the important part of all of this that was unsafe for us to turn onto our street because there were big vehicles right there. You couldn't see if another car was coming. There wasn't room for two, opposing cars. And also, as people have said, people pulling out of the business. I have no personal feelings about the business. I just would like to drive onto my street without getting hit or seeing a child get hurt. It was really all about the safety for us. We do appreciate you did that. I also feel support for the neighbors at 110 since they're not able to park in front of their home. But we do want to thank you again. And it's not personal, it's just a safety issue. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, anyone else? Anyone else, gentlemen?
My name is Grant Cleveland. I live at 132 Highview Drive.
Is that Cleveland?
Cleveland. The no parking signs seem to be working out at least for us at the moment. I would like to add that if it would be possible to put a dead end sign on the road, that'd be great. It would be a big drive to the front yard, or the very end of the road, driving into the Cedar Acres. If you've noticed, we've had 4 or 5 big pots on the road. Those are strategically placed with cars to back through our yard.
Is there
Into Cedar Acres.
Is there a grass? So there's a grass space, like people are.
Yeah.
Like I can actually see
there's car tracks.
I can see the car tracks.
Yeah. Me and my wife specifically saw that happen tonight where they almost go through. They backed up and kind of stopped, but it's a concern. Happened probably about 5 or 6 times in the last 5 years. So something that could help.
Just so I'm clear, where Skyview intersects
Yes.
Highland or
Skyview intersects
Highview.
Highview.
Yeah. Okay.
Goes, Highview goes in front of our yard or house. No road there.
We can certainly look at, the proper placement of a no outlet or dead end sign or
Big
the
piece of
appropriate.
concrete. Bollard. Bollards.
uh,
Holy cow. Okay. All right. We'll see what we can do from staff. You're welcome. Sure.
Brian Rogers, again, just to offer, we have moved a lot of the trees and bushes. We created 4 new spaces in our spot to try to ease that burden. But it's, once again, no disrespect to the neighbors. Like I said, that's their nest. I totally respect that. But it's simply preference. It's not a matter of safety. That street is no narrower than the one above it, below it, and all the way down the street where the bus continues to stop. 50 feet is more than adequate space for someone making a turn there. If you can't make a turn 50 feet, you got other problems to solve.
So it's preferential treatment. And that's, like I said, none of those other streets are zoned with 200 plus with parking setbacks.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. President. Anything different that hasn't been said? Sure, come on up. You're gonna need to, yeah.
Wandering 125 Highway. I just have a question. They have all that big yard in front of the building.
Speaking to the mic there, Wanda. If you can.
They
Thank
have all that big yard, that grass, it's very pretty in front of their business. Could that not be turned into some parking spaces also? I mean, I don't know what the permits allow or the zoning allow. But, it just seems like it's more decorative and not in use like it should be.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, we've heard from the public. I'm probably gonna think just everybody spoke actually. Comments, thoughts, discussion amongst the board here.
Well, I guess comment I would make is I'm a little concerned about the word preferential being used because I'm not a traffic engineer and staff has reviewed this and we believe that it's a safety issue. It's not preferential. So we made a decision based on recommendation from staff based on safety concerns. I am happy that we can move the sign back to allow the neighbor behind them to park in front of their house. But otherwise, I'm supporting where we're at. That is to make that change only to what our ordinance is.
Ethan.
Just a couple of things, and these are, I would say there's quite a few statements that were made that I would agree with, but they can be true at the same time, even though they may seem to contradict. If you drive, if you pull trailers I've pulled a lot of trailers. If you pull trailers or drive fire trucks, then you can absolutely make that turn. I agree with the gentleman in the back. You can make it safely if you drive trailers, but most people don't. For the average driver, the large amounts of traffic going in and out of the chiropractic business do make it difficult for them and they feel unsafe making that corner. Local streets are our jurisdiction, and we have routinely made parking changes based off of feedback from the neighbors, based off of the preference of the people in the neighborhood. So there may be, if the state was making the decision, they might make it differently, but they don't make this decision. We do, and we have a large amount of leeway because we're the local representative body. So, and then the stormwater issues, would make it almost impossible to add any additional parking down that lot. I mean, it's going to be way too expensive. So I wouldn't want to force the folks to do that. The other one is it's a public street and anyone can park on the public street, including in front of your house. So I'm in favor of modifying the distance back to be where the ingress and egress of the business is that's generating the large amount of traffic. Both sides, so it's directly back, not worrying about which side of the street. It's just back to where the traffic generator begins and ends, which is the ingress and egress. The only thing I could think of that could potentially make it safer than that would be if the chiropractic business would look at making a one-way in, one-way out. So people are only making right turns and they're not crossing any lanes of traffic to enter or exit. That would be up to them to look at, and that would potentially change the flow of traffic if people are coming in on Crestmont, exiting on Highview. You're not crossing a lane of traffic if you're doing that. But that would be up to the business to look at that option, which would then change the way we could potentially do parking on either of those side streets. But I would support modifying the ordinance to say, all right, up to the ingress and egress points of the business, maintain no parking, but no further than that is necessary. And that also gives plenty of space for the employees to park on the street. I think it's a good thing to let your employees park over there and give space for your clients. I've operated businesses where I've had to walk through a cornfield to get over on Willow Road to my office. It's not great, but it's if you're going to do it so you have visitor parking, it's what you as a business need to do, and I think that's admirable that you would do that. But you shouldn't have to walk 200 feet down the street. As long as you're out of where all the traffic's generated, I think that's meets the safety requirements. It also gives you space to go and park, and also gives you more space to spread out. So you can spread the wealth of parking in front of your neighbors around a little bit. But people will park in front of your houses because it's a public street. But if we want to make that intersection safer, then that's the trade-off.
So staff, I'm assuming that the driveways in and out, the entrances to the business, are guiding how far back we're going in addition to state standards. So Mr. Demi is saying, is there a way that we could adjust the distance from Old Philadelphia Pike north on both of these roadways that we would be able to allow for ingress and egress into the business safely, but not go back as far as the ordinance is currently calling for?
On the Crestmont side, the location of the signs, and I didn't measure them myself, but the location of the sign is just north of the access driveway for the chiropractic business.
Okay.
The signs on Highview were placed farther north than the signs on Crestmont. Basically, the width of 110 Highview. And just to be clear, what I was suggesting earlier to the board was to allow parking in front of 110, but to continue with the restriction on the eastern side of Highview to the current distance.
Across from 110.
Across from 110, correct. And the reason for that really is because of the amount of activity south of the chiropractic business in combination with the activity at that driveway. Having the restriction to continue on the eastern side allows for enough visibility so that opposing traffic can get on the road, see each other, and make provision to pass each other in a safe way. So if somebody needs to get over, either at the chiropractic driveway or just north of it, there's space there that the two vehicles can pass each other more safely. So that was the reason for my thought to only change on the west side of Highview in front of 110.
Okay.
That's this. It might be helpful to pull that satellite image, but this whole vacant spot is what is currently restricted. And I'm advocating there's no need to do that because the amount of traffic, because the other point is true of cars parked on streets slows traffic down and makes it a much safer space to live and have kids play in the street. Because you do have to slow down.
So staff, the east side of Highview, I'm assuming is across 110. I do see Mr. Miller's house there, across from 110. And staff, your concern would be is that it's going to create sight distance coming out of 110.
Not necessarily sight distance, but just opposing traffic movements on Highview. And it's different on the Crestmont side, just because of where driveways are located in relationship to the road itself. So it's, in my view, it's different on the Crestmont side than it is on Highview.
Yeah.
And I would just disagree with that because there's no house on that side of the street. So usually when you have a sight distance and on-street parking, it's the people entering and exiting from a driveway. If there's a car parked and there's a driveway right there, that's where you have to nose out further, which is the case on Crestmont. On Highview, there's no driveways to nose out of.
Yeah, and
on that east side.
Yeah, I'm probably not doing an adequate job in describing the concern because that's not the concern.
Yeah. As I look at Highview on the east here, there's a driveway at 110 and then a driveway at 112 on the west, probably leaving distance for about one car to park on the east as cars are backing in and out of 110 and 112. Not a significant amount of space there. What is the empty lot south of 115, Ralph.
I have not researched that. I would guess it's part of the Cedar Acres.
It's a piece of, no, I'm
Property.
sorry, Ralph. There's a piece of macadam parking lot adjacent to 115.
Yes, the apartment building.
Ah, that's where those two walks are coming to there. Okay. So, yeah, not a significant amount of opportunity for parking, Ethan, on that east side. I mean, there's probably enough space, maybe cars there on that east side when you safely try to allow for parking, 2 cars there, trying to get, the clearance at the entrance here.
There's 3 cars parked right there.
Yeah.
But it's mainly, the impact is the traffic entering and exiting the business.
Yeah.
The neighborhood has streets wide enough to park on those streets.
Yeah.
So I see no need to restrict it within the neighborhood at all.
So let me add, if I can, myself. First of all, absolutely no targeting of anyone by this board in our discussions or subsequent discussions, by staff's comments, 0 targeting. So just, we're not targeting anybody's business or anybody's property. As Mr. Demi said, we hear on a regular occurrence requests from residents, both businesses and homeowners, to review activity in and around their neighborhoods. And like any governing body, we have to balance interests to try to keep peace and be civil and ensure justice. And so we are thrilled. We were all really excited when this business located here and still are, and see it as an asset to the community. It's challenging when you live in an older neighborhood and we're allowing for infill development. When there are new and unique business opportunities, Mr. Matos and his in-home daycare, and it does present change to an older neighborhood. I understand that very well, and so it is difficult to deal with that. But that's why we're trying to listen to the concerns of the homeowners and to provide for some relief for some of the safety issues. I would prefer that the discussions happen before coming before a governing body. It saves us all time, headaches, and tax dollars. But when those conversations start to become uncivil and they're banging into each other, we need to provide the forum to allow for that. And it has, I think, been productive conversation over the past couple of months. So I appreciate everyone coming and participating in that conversation. The business is allowing for the use of the parking lot, which is an excellent, neighbor. I think that's great. I want to encourage the business to keep doing that. At the same time, I can see, if I lived there, I see the ingress and the egress to the neighborhood definitely need to be kept open. That's a challenge. If this was all being developed today, it would be so much more of a requirement upon the business. The impact of the roads, I mean, the things that we would require would be significantly more than this. So I think we have worked in a legacy historic neighborhood to allow for the business to go in there, but also trying to respect the safety concerns of the citizens. I mean, I would be open to considering something on that Highview side, the east side. I think it's going to provide minimal opportunity, but I also think, Mr. Miller, you're going to probably have to embrace that pulling in out of your house, the business is going to probably park cars right where you're backing out of your house. So as you're backing out, you're going to be looking in your mirror. You'll be backing in your driveway. That's good, because if there's a I get it. In that situation, you'd be parked on, you'll be coming out of your driveway. There'll be cars for the business parked on the east side of Highview, and someone is coming south on Highview, one of your neighbors, or one of your neighbors is coming in. You're all going to be faced with the very civil. I get it. Very, the decision would have to be, okay, which one of us goes? There's a car parked there, and that's a $40,000 pickup truck. And this is coming, I'm just saying, if we were to consider what Mr. Demi is recommending, we are going to be all faced with those kinds of situations. Okay.
And my thought is you allow parking on both sides so they don't all stack up in front of one person's house, the closest one. There's room for people to spread out. Yeah. I'm
Sure. Sure. I don't think your neighbors are going to want your brother-in-law to pull on their grass. Or we're going to be back here. Okay, Dave, I hear you saying, high view.
I think we established where we established parking on the west side and on
Crestmont. Thank you. Thank you. Dave, on the west side of Highview, I guess it's probably Ralph at staff. On the west side of Highview, if we're going to open up opportunity for Mr. Miller to park in front of his home, very, very close to the property line then between the business and Mr. Miller's where the sign's going to have to be.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So Dave, Ethan is suggesting on that east side of Highview. Yeah. Ethan's, looking forward to move back. So, and once again, we don't have to do this tonight. We can consider this at our next meeting. It's going to have to be advertised.
The change to the ordinance would have to be advertised, yes.
Yeah. It has to be advertised for how long, Ralph?
I believe it's a 2-week requirement.
Okay, 2. So whatever we would decide to do, it has to be advertised in the local paper for 2 weeks before we do it. Okay. Your neighbors need to be able to see that we're considering this. So. Okay, so I'm hearing some discussion about Crestmont remaining where it is, signs remaining where they are. Also hearing Ethan saying he might be amenable to pulling those signs further south towards the business property line.
Yeah, and that was my initial I didn't get out and measure how far up when we initially passed the ordinance. I assumed it was to where the traffic was coming in and out of the business.
Okay. Can't really see what's there.
I've driven it a couple of times since. Yeah.
So I'm open to a suggestion. I'm open to a modification of the ordinance.
Well, we'd be directing staff to modify the ordinance and then it would be advertised and then the board could vote on it.
Okay.
But we'd be voting up or down on the amendment to the ordinance.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, Ralph, is, what if we would take the signs on Crestmont, we allow for those to remain in place. There's a lot of, there are 2 driveways that are, actually there are 3 driveways that are almost at the property line of the business. So we're back beyond 111 and 112 Crestmont. Trying to get into a location where there are not 3 driveways coming in there and the business, we're at least past 112. I'm assuming the signs are just about there anyway.
What I'm confident in saying is that the signs on Crestmont are at the property line to the rear of the chiropractic business.
Okay, so they're
directly across from each other.
Okay, so they're actually at about that property line, right where 111 Crestmont's driveway comes in and out. Cool.
I believe you. I don't know.
I get it.
111
I get it. And then so leaving that in place, Ethan is suggesting that we take the east side of Highview and
just move the no parking restriction.
Move the no parking restriction
approximately the same distance as we have on Crestmont.
Across from property line as well too. So Okay. The west side of Highview staff, you're recommending those signs come up, basically up to the property line where the business is on the west side. Ethan suggesting we
The
move.
shared property line with the Miller property at 110 and the chiropractor.
Yep, get it. Okay. Dave, thoughts? Crestmont would remain in place.
Yep.
Highview west side would come up to the property line. East side would come up and be, sort of right across the street from that as well too.
Yeah, I was looking at this. It appears as though as you come up, there is a bit of a hill as you approach that area,
On Highview.
but it's not that significant.
Yeah.
I think visibility would be acceptable. there.
Okay. All right. So staff.
Is that your recollection, Ethan?
Yeah.
Okay. So staff looking at modifying east side of Highview, west side of Highview, roughly the business property line on the west side, and on the east side, the restriction would be equivalent to the distance that's on the west side. On the Crestmont side, things would remain in place as the ordinance is currently calling for. Okay, so for the public, what we're asking staff to do is to prepare a modification to the ordinance that we passed at our July meeting. And that modification would be worded similar to what I just said. And the advertisement, the paper would state that we're modifying the ordinance to be that. And then the entire board or those who are present, at least a quorum, at a meeting in November, our first meeting in November.
You only have one meeting in November, so it would be that meeting.
Okay, was where we would consider the advertised ordinance and we would vote on it then. Okay, all right. Understand what we're looking at? We understand? Okay, Mr. Miller, the discussion meeting your expectations. Mr. Rogers, helping the business to adjust a bit. Thank you. Mr. Rogers, I appreciate the thank you to the neighbors. I think that's we're all working together. We're all working together. So, okay. All right. Anything on motion stuff? Motion to forward that language to staff?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure. We're certainly going to take a motion when we adopt an ordinance. Would it be necessary? We can do that.
Typically, we've done a motion to direct staff to draft.
Yeah.
And advertise.
Was that it?
Yep. Okay, so motion?
Make a motion to direct staff to draft a modification of the ordinance based off of Chairman Blauer's stated moving the Highview parking
Signs
south to the border of the property of 210 the Highview and chiropractic.
110. 110. Okay. Motion's been made. Motion by Mr. Demi, second by Mr. Buckwalter. Questions or concerns? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much, all. Thank you for your participation.
And if it doesn't work in 6 months, come back.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, 8A, new business, 1724 Lincoln Highway Stormwater Management Plan number 2121 time extension. Ralph.
The applicant is asking for a time extension in order to complete the stormwater planning process. They're working through engineering comments and such, so we'd recommend providing the time extension requested.
Okay. No, anyone here for 1724? No?
Are they receiving any guidance from the staff or planning regarding? Okay.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so time extension, staff recommending time extension to December 2nd, 2021.
Move for approval.
Second. Okay, moved by Dave, seconded by Ethan. Questions or concerns? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Action items, 9A, approval of peer consulting agreement for the, in reference to our regional recreation plan.
As you recall, the board had made application for peer-to-peer technical assistance grant from the state to allow us to have a recreation professional be a peer and consult with the region to help develop a regional entity focused on recreation programming. We're at the point now where a recreation professional has been selected, and the state requires us to enter into an agreement for those services, and asking the board to approve of that agreement so that we can proceed.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move that we approve the peer counseling agreement.
Second.
Okay, a motion's been made by Dave, seconded by Ethan. Questions or concerns? Hearing none. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. 9B, appointment of the steering committee representatives for that same regional recreation plan.
Right, so there needs to be a committee made up of the participants from the region, which would be representatives from the school district, representatives from Upper Laycock Township, and representatives from East Lampeter. Those representatives should be named by the Board of Supervisors in East Lampeter's case. So I would suggest, and as I have suggested to the others, that there be 3 people from each entity to participate in the process with the consultants.
When do we need those by?
The sooner that everybody can get those names in, the sooner we can get started on the process. So I don't know the timing of the school district and Upper Laycock's meetings, so I don't know exactly when they're going to be acting on them.
Okay.
You have a meeting in 2 weeks.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kim.
if I were to make a recommendation, I would say no later than your 2nd October meeting.
So Diane has expressed an interest.
Yes, Mrs. Tyson
Right. Okay, so
on the
we've
park
got-
board has, yes.
One at this point, so it's 2 more.
Right, could be member of the board, could also be staff, but could be anybody from the community that the board feels would
Do you think
represent.
Mike would be interested in involvement
At the school.
He had a broader involvement there than he would have. Here.
It's
Just a
certainly, it's
thought.
certainly possible, him coming on the board. It's certainly possible. Have to wait till after. January
He
1st.
could be on it now.
Yeah, I was thinking we got appointed
Yeah,
as
just
a,
member of the community.
He's currently just a
Member of the
community.
community.
yeah, if he's,
Okay,
that's just a thought.
okay.
Yeah. Do you think it'd be beneficial, especially since this is committee sort of setting up the structure to do business later, that we put a member of the staff on?
But from my perspective, what I think should happen is that this group comes together and creates a recommendation to create, the overall structure of what a regional recreation entity would look like for the CV region. It's not going to get into the weeds of, should there be a playground at a certain place, or should there be a particular program operated, but rather, how would a regional entity get created and then function? So again, I picture certain numbers of representatives on a board that would be created, whether it's an authority or a commission or whatever the structure might be, from the school district and all the townships participating, that would then be a board that would have authority to do certain things. And, this project would identify what those things are and, where money would come from to operate this entity, and whatever programming they would choose and want to operate, hopefully in response to what the community says they're looking for and need in services. But again, not get into the weeds of, how many times do we mow each park? So that's how I see it. And it's pretty much, I think, a fair summary of what the recreation plan recommends.
So we have some time here till we identify some others.
Sure.
Okay. All right, I can make a phone call to Mike Thornton and see what his thoughts are, his interests are. Okay.
Great, Lance, you could well-rounded perspective of the Connersville Valley region.
Absolutely. Think of, another number of mothers who are having children starting to go to the public schools and make it interesting. All right. Okay, manager's report.
Staff has provided the board with an update on our activities for the MS4 program. I don't think there's necessarily anything in particular.
I think it's
to point
important
out.
that we point out that the annual report was submitted on time.
There you
to
go.
DEP, so.
See, you put a feather in your cap. There you go.
Yeah, that is an undertaking. That's not just a morning. That's an undertaking.
Mhm.
So that has been completed. The other thing that I wanted to mention was, and this doesn't require any board action, but I want the board to be aware. Last meeting, you adopted the MMOs for the pension plan, and I had indicated that the calculation would indicate a change to the non-uniform employees' contribution rate to be 2.76. We got the actual state aid contribution, which changed the calculation slightly. So the actual rate next year for the non-uniform employees would be 2.62%.
Okay. Thank you.
Other than that, if the board members has any questions for me on anything, I'd be happy to try to address them.
My associates at this point, no follow-up at this point. Okay.
As far as the plan that you conditionally approved, no, we have not
Okay.
seen anything from that.
No, nothing else for me at this point. Okay. Motion for adjournment. Second. Okay, motion made by Dave, seconded by